Hello friends and welcome back to the channel Football Therapy with me, your host Jan, and I hope you're doing well, friend. I really do hope that. Welcome back to Chelsea News, the twice daily series here on the channel where I reflect on what's being said about Chelsea across all headlines and media platforms. Much to get into today. Nice words said about Mauricio Pochettino, the Chelsea manager. I also want to talk about a couple of articles that were published on The Mail, which I don't usually like to reference, but they've got an exclusive on Chelsea poaching the FA's head of performance, which is pretty big news. And also an interview that I haven't listened to yet, the diary of a CEO, Frank Lampard, opening up on the issues at Chelsea, which could be very, very seminal points. I will listen and watch to this interview because I do love that podcast, but I haven't done so yet. Just as a disclaimer, I just want to read some quotes and so we can learn about it together. And a bit on Lukaku as well. Thank you for joining me. Do consider supporting the content by dropping a like. Thank you. It's a tap of a button and it helps me out. And you're welcome to subscribe. And should you choose to do so, you should hit the bell notifications icon so you get updated. Right, I do want to mention it. I did just watch the Dele interview on The Overlap, and man, hella emotional, powerful stuff. I do subscribe to the concept of true strength is demonstrated in vulnerability, and Dele demonstrated immense strength in that interview. You know, we one jokes over the years, seeing him at parties doing laughing gas, but that doesn't touch the surface of the pain and the means he was going through to avoid his feelings and trauma, of which there are many shocking and sickening things he's had to endure as a small child, man. I won't go into it here because it's really can be disturbing, and that's not the content that I want to platform right now, because it's not what you expect. But I urge you, if you want to hear the truth and an emotionally inspirational story, go watch that. But it is relevant today because he spoke about our manager, Mauricio Pochettino. He said this: "I couldn't have asked for a better manager than Pochettino. Him and his team, amazing people and so understanding. It was a deeper relationship than a manager and his player. He was so understanding and cared about me as a person, which is what I needed at that time. He was giving me a platform to express myself and be comfortable. He helped me a lot in that period, and it was tough for me when he left." Now, obviously, great to hear nice positive things about our current manager, Mauricio Pochettino. But we have a lot of young players. Dele was a young player then, and all, young people have problems, growing pains. The mental health in young men is a huge issue and getting worse and worse over time. So to have a really empathetic, compassionate person is really important. And look what he got out of Dele Alli. He was incredible, man. He was so good. I mean, we joke about the fall off, and that's what football fans do. They joke about the narrative of football. Perhaps now we've heard the truth of his story, there'll be more compassion. Chelsea have got a lot of young players. If he can do the stuff he did with Dele Alli to whoever, say a Cesare Casadei, and gets him with that profound output in the Premier League. People forget that there was talks about Real Madrid, him being the jewel in the young English talent crown. He was the one that people wanted. Granted, at the time Kane was scoring more goals, but Dele was still scoring goals and doing great work all over the pitch and scoring headers and different kinds of goals and getting assists. He was an incredible player. I do wish him all the best, and his words just reinforce my confidence and excitement for Mauricio Pochettino at Chelsea. Right, so less sanguine, let's move on. Romelu Lukaku, or perhaps not less sanguine. Ben Jacobs of CBS writes this: "Chelsea have 3 serious bidders for Romelu Lukaku. That's good to have 3 serious bidders, and are continuing conversations with all of them." Now, one would have to speculate. Of course, one's Inter. One's the Saudi pro club. Was it Al Hilal? I can't remember which one now. There's, they're constantly rotating around who's doing what, so it's difficult to keep up with who. But and then perhaps we could speculate one is Juventus. So Inter is a viable option because that is who Lukaku wants to go to. But they're the lowest of the 3 bidders, and Chelsea are not yet looking to accept what Inter are offering, and that's obviously where Romelu wants to go. They just, for such a long time, they've had huge financial issues, Inter Milan, and I mean, Maybe if they offer £35 million, it just goes there. Maybe even 30 million with bonuses. But at the moment, 40 million's being offered by Saudi Arabia. I don't know what Juve, if that's the third club, one would have to assume it is. It's going to be over the 25 million Inter have offered, especially because they feel like they can get a lot of cash for Vlahovic. They can make money while still having what they deem an elite Serie A striker, someone who can score goals in Italy, which of course is Romelu Lukaku. Now, interesting. It's got to be done soon. He's not going to go to America. Chelsea are working hard on that, but of course they're working really hard on Moises Caicedo. We gave an update on this morning's video regarding Caicedo, so if you want details on that, do go watch my previous upload to this one. Right, before we speak about Frank Lampard opening up with a can of beans on what happened at Chelsea and what went on and why, maybe a little bit telling some cold truths. There's an exclusive on the Mail written by Matt Hughes. So Chelsea have recruited FA's head of performance. Now, head of performance to me sounds like a rather important, title, purely because our performance has been, quite frankly, insert swear word here. So it's Bryce Kavanagh to Mauricio Pochettino's staff, essentially. It's a huge blow to England ahead of the next year's Euros, which, sucks for me. I'm an England fan, but, ultimately club ahead of country. Chelsea have poached the FA's head of performance, Bryce Kavanagh, in a major blow to England's preparations for next summer's European Championship. So he's an Australian sports scientist. He's worked closely with Southgate and the players since 2016. So pretty much since we've got better, because 2016... there was a game against Iceland that was hella embarrassing. So maybe he's got something to do with us being good again, or theoretically good again, much like Chelsea. And he has been credited by the England manager with making his side one of the fittest in international football. Wow. Well, if Pochettino wants fit players, this is perfect. Chelsea's move for Kavanagh predates the arrival of Mauricio Pochettino. Whoa! As the manager is... seen within the sport as a significant coup for the Todd Boehly regime. So they've made a move for him before Pochettino, but it's only just come out. I'm surprised that's not been leaked prior then. So the club's medical sports science department has been in a state of flux since the protracted takeover of the club last summer. Yeah. We can say that, basically. It's been an absolute crap show and everyone's got injured. Long-standing doctors, of course, left, and physios as well. So we're basically bringing in... this is generally the ethos of the new owners. They want to bring in best of class everywhere to build a team for the future. And it talks about Kavanagh. He's worked in rugby, he's worked in cricket, and apparently he's just really, really good. He worked closely with Southgate during the 7 years at the FA. He also planned and developed good relations with Premier League clubs, as he was involved in planning bespoke fitness regimes for individual players. The England players are really fit. The ones that, played in, these finals and got extra time and played really well. That is a good sign and good news for Chelsea. His ability to work with assistant coach Jesus Perez. They believe the key to success is him working with him well, who's Pochettino's closest aide and will take over overall fitness. I think this is actually a really good thing, generally. We've spoken about this before in previous videos lately, that Chelsea's one of our biggest issues is, despite having, I'm sure we'll hear the Frank Lampard quotes in a minute that testify to this, but we had so many injury issues, performance issues, pretty much everything is, I imagine Frank's going to say, injury issues, performance issues. We're addressing that now with Perez coming in, being a super fitness guy. And then bringing in this performance guy. I mean, kudos to the owners. They've looked at. Look, I am really mindful not to absolve the owners of wrongdoing because they've done a lot wrong. But at the same time, you have to be balanced. And clearly, a lot of what went wrong was stuff that was a long time coming. We all agree Chelsea have been papering over the cracks for many things. Not everything, for years. So that was perhaps chickens coming home to roost, alongside owners' poor decisions, culminating in disaster and finishing 12th. But what they've tried to do along, the way, perhaps less fragmented than they should have done, they were a bit more of just do everything at once, is bring in the best of class to fix in these long-term problems that the data that they've analysed has dictated. Well, look at this. They were really annoyed at Chelsea's lack of appropriate data, and the data they pulled, it was just trending in poor directions and, culminating in basically not good stuff. So bringing in a renowned head of performance with everything else is probably pretty smart move, you'd have to say, from the ownership. All right, another article from the Mail from Liam Morgan. Citing a lot of quotes from Frank Lampard on the Diary of a CEO podcast. Of course, Stephen Bartlett's podcast. Really good, actually. I can recommend it. I like listening to it. And Frank Lampard spoke about what was going on at Chelsea. And I think many of you will be interested in it. I certainly would. So let's read some quotes together. The article starts like this. Frank Lampard has admitted that the bloated squad Chelsea had inherited during his ill-fated spell as interim manager lacked spirit and togetherness, and revealed the standard in training was no way near good enough. So, of course, Lampard was appointed in April to lead the Blues until the end of the season, which at the time seemed like a really good idea. He obviously connected with the fans, and we thought he could bring a little bit tell the players what it means to play for Chelsea. Didn't work out like that, but it was just nice to see him there, knocking about. And obviously it was our worst. It was our worst ever Premier League finish. I keep thinking it's the worst since '94, but or the worst ever. Either way, it was terrible. So the 45-year-old was outspoken in the drop of standards towards the end of his short tenure, and has now opened up on some of the reasons behind their dismal campaign. So of course he speaks up to Stephen Bartlett, the guy from Dragon's Den, but I like him from his own podcast, Diary of a CEO. We know the situation: £660 million outlay from Bowley. Lack of motivation is key to the club's demise. So Frank Lampard says this: I could see in training the level wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough to get a result at Brentford at home or whatever, let alone Real Madrid. Because in a way he was brought in see if you can beat Real Madrid on pure vibes. But he was like, look, nonsense. These boys can't do anything. He goes on to say, when I got there, I could see the team spirit and togetherness was not there. Not that it was low, it just wasn't there. It was nothing bad, but you have to train to be elite, as in they're probably being nice boys, but there wasn't a team there, The minute we didn't get through against Real, you're at the end of the season zone, and what you're playing for is the norm, not the norm for Chelsea. Of course, we weren't even going for Europe at that point. At Chelsea, we should be playing for something. We played for not so much. Another reason why motivation came down. Of course, Lampard, who was out of work following his role at Chelsea interim manager, he was given a first team squad of more than 30 players, including, of course, superstars like Fernandes and Mudryk. He says this: when I came in, I noticed very quickly that some players were thinking the season was going to peter out, and that what the future could look like for them. If I'm a player that's not been playing for 7 months and now I might be leaving in 4 weeks' time, I'm probably going to struggle to motivate that player. I haven't got a magic wand to motivate them. When you have an international players in a big number, you're telling internationals they have to stay at home. It's not easy. You have to stay home. I'm not sure I get that. Lampard, however, refused to criticise Bowley. This is interesting. And of the new ownership, despite Chelsea's woeful campaign and loads spent, he says, look, the intentions are certainly good. I know that. I had a good relationship with them. Their intentions is to do a good job are amazing. They want to take their... This, bearing in mind, this is Frank Lampard, proper Chelsea, only wants what's good for Chelsea, and to the point where he was telling some home truths. They want to take the club and be the best. They have great intentions. They've spent the money because they want to do well. They're going to address the situation, is their strategy going forward. But do I think you will see players like Fernandes, Mudryk and Madueke develop, and they're going to be big players for the club? Is that cliffhanger? Lampard, who was succeeded by Chelsea Pochettino, also repeated his insistence that he doesn't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets about doing it. Chelsea's record goal scorer added, if people want to criticise or have a view of my 6 or 7 weeks of work, I've got no problem with that. It's my most favourite. It wasn't my most favourite experience of my career, but it was an experience that I have learnt from. Yeah, I think he just lived near Stamford Bridge and liked coming down and wanted to see that, because he didn't get a goodbye as well when he was sacked before, and now he knew he was having to the end of the season. He got to say goodbye to the Chelsea fans, and it just made a little bit more sense, Look, we know it was a crap show, but it was very interesting for him to say, look, the situation was untenable. And that's kind of why we've already sold 10 relatively high-profile players before we've even left for pre-season. we got to work very, very quickly, because one thing Lampard was doing while he was still remained in situ at Chelsea was, utilising, or the ownership were utilising their good relationship with Frank and being like, look, what's going on here, mate? And he's probably just like, look at it. No one cares. No one's trying. And it's so hard to get someone to come in and be like, just do it, just play, especially saying that we can't get a result against Brentford at home. I can't get these lot to get inspired for Real Madrid. It's not just trimming the fat, it's like bleaching the toxins out of the club and getting just young starry-eyed players in, new coaches, new regime, people like Bruno Solto are keeping him because apparently he's a really good energy around the club, really just starting again, building the culture from a ground up, and then really realising that Pochettino, in theory, is the ideal coach because he wants to build a culture from the ground up. They thought, in a sort of like Pepsi light way, Graham Potter was that, but he didn't have the passion or the cojones. I will die on the hill of saying Graham Potter's a great guy and a great manager, but he's not a Chelsea manager, is he? And maybe I learnt that later than some, but I certainly learnt it in the end. And here we are with probably the appropriate, or almost certainly, touch wood, cross everything, the appropriate man to do the job in Mauricio Pochettino. But it's interesting to hear backing the owners, the owners won't be feeding Lampard money now after they've sacked him. You can say whatever the hell you want, you can say, and ultimately he wants Chelsea to succeed. And this is him saying, they're doing, their intentions are really, really good. They're ready to spend. They're ready to do what's right. They want Chelsea to be great. They want Chelsea to win. So I put it out to you guys. Please do comment on everything I've spoken about. Dele's comments on Pochettino. Please do comment on, Romelu Lukaku. The performance dude. Is he going to come in and get performances out of us? He's got a really positive track record, Kavanagh, and maybe that could be the difference maker. I look forward, as always, to read your comments and thank you for them. I'm putting up soundproofing later. I wanted it ready for this video, but it will be tomorrow morning, or if anything pops off tonight, I'll do another video. Loads of videos all the time from me, mate. So thanks for joining me. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care of yourselves.